On this episode, an edging technique called thumb circles.
This is the Holistic Alpha Male Optimization Podcast, where we help you unleash your true power as a man.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Stephen Mathis. Thank you for listening or for watching. If you're watching video, Spotify is the best place to do that, by the way. It is a beautiful afternoon in the mountains, soaking up some sun today. You know what's really good for your testosterone levels? Sunshine. You know what's really good for your libido? Sunshine. You know what's really good for your mental health? Sunshine. You know what's really good for your physical health in so many ways? Sunshine. I would suggest that you make getting sun a priority. It is so worth making it happen. And I know that depending on your schedule and all the things, you may have to make it happen. Set the intention and do it because it is so worthwhile. I know many of you guys know that and are getting lots of sun in your life. Let's talk about an edging technique that is very, very beneficial for working in that, let's say, 8 to 9.8, 9.9 kind of range. That range where we're aroused, it is a fairly high energy level, but we're not right to the point of no return. We're in that range where, okay, it's elevated, it's charged up in a really meaningful way. And that range, again, don't get too hung up on the numbers, but let's call it, for generalization's sake, let's call it 8 to 9.9. That range is so beneficial. That is where we can truly do so much amazing work with our sexual energy. That's the place you want to practice if you want to improve your stamina and be able to last longer. That's the place to be spending a lot of time if you would like to transmute your sexual energy into creative ideas, into physical energy, into healing energy that might affect you in many ways. That is really, in a lot of ways, the most magical place in terms of our arousal, right? There's magic in any kind of human touch. And even if you're not at that 8 level, there's a lot of beauty and amazingness in that. But once we get to that kind of aroused but still in control kind of range, man, we can do some very, very powerful things in that range. This particular edging technique is especially beneficial for working in that range because it allows a focus that is hard to replicate other ways, and it also allows a control that's hard to replicate other ways. Let me tell you exactly what I mean. On the top of the shaft, so if your cock's just like hanging down, the outside, the top, right? The top of the shaft, right below the head, there is a spot. And on that spot lies a lot of potential, actually, because that spot is kind of that mix. It's a mix where it's extra sensitive versus the rest of the shaft, but it's not the different kind of sensitivity of the head. And you may know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't have that kind of, nuanced connection with the differences, but there is definitely a different kind of sensation on the head itself, especially if you're circumcised. But that spot right below the head on the top of the shaft, that spot is something special because it is more sensitive. It's a spot that we can focus on. And because it's more sensitive, we don't have to be stimulating the entire thing. We can just be basically stimulating that spot. And because we're stimulating less overall area, that in and of itself leads to more control. So this technique will allow you to, once you get in that range, and you may be able to use this sort of before that level 8 kind of range, depending on your libido, it may or may not be enough really stimulation to get you up to that point. But no matter where you are in the journey, once you're in that aroused state, this will be enough stimulation, primarily focusing on this one spot, where it will keep you going. It will keep you in that elevated kind of range, but with much less sensitivity, with much greater control, which allows you to really tune into the energy itself and really work with that and practice pulling it up your spine, practice relaxing into it, and just work with it, get more familiar with it. So the way to stimulate this spot, of course, is up to you. What I have found myself, as well as not only guys that I've taught this to, but guys that I've heard from that found their way to this before we ever talked about it, a pretty typical way to do this is we're making thumb circles on that spot, right? So you're going to take your other 3 or 4 fingers in terms of what you want to actually make contact, and they'll be on the opposite side. and then your thumb on that spot. Again, on the top of the shaft, right below the head. That's where your thumb will be. Don't get too hung up on the circle part. Doesn't have to be exactly circles, of course, but that's the basic idea. So you may find that it works best to have your hand in kind of like a to the side position where your other fingers on the back side, they're coming in from the side as well as your thumb. Or you may find it more beneficial to come from the top, essentially to come down over the head where your thumb is on one side, on the top side, your 3 or 4 fingers are on the other side, and you're holding you're holding your cock in that position where you can make those circles with your thumb. Experiment with this. I've heard from many guys and absolutely find in my own practice that this is a very beneficial way to stimulate that I think a lot of guys are not doing. And if you haven't happened to find your way to it naturally or heard about it, I know I never did this for the first 30 some odd years of my life. I can tell you it's worth experimenting with because this is absolutely the way that often I find the best control. By the way, one of the things that I spoke about on a recent episode, some number back, 6 or 10 back or something like that, was basically stimulating through a thin layer of clothing, again, to reduce the sensitivity a little bit and allow you to experiment more with the control and be more in that aroused kind of place. This technique, this thumb circles technique, goes very, very well with that. But you can, of course, do it naked as well. Experiment with this. I just want to reiterate to you guys that I know for so many of you, it is a very new concept, the idea that masturbation can be something positive, that it can be something that truly lifts you up, and that does some of the things that I talk about that can help you get creative ideas, that will help you have more physical energy, that will help you heal emotional and energetic stuff within you, that will help you connect with yourself in a deeper way. It may be foreign. That doesn't mean it's not real. It just means you haven't experienced it yet. So keep stepping. Promise you, one man to another, there is so much potential in mindful edging, in edging in a sacred way where you're not on screens and you're not necessarily fantasizing about something else, where you're primarily connecting within yourself most of the time. And you're working with that energy, man, the power that it has, so much power. You have so much power. Go get some. Talk to you soon.